If you want to get out of the van, you've got to learn how to train and coach your people. And when I talk to my ops managers, we talk about this is what you need to focus in on. You need to spend a third of your time with the operations, and then another third of your time needs to be recruiting. And thirdly, you got to be a coach and have that coach's heart that you want to see these guys improve. And that's what I look at. That's what I teach, and that's what I did.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts Nate and Brian are hanging out with you here again. And man, we are excited to talk about a tale as old as time, how another person in the trades has found a ladder and found their way from the truck to the owner spots. We're bringing on Aaron Hagan to talk to us about growing his electrical company and so much more. But before we get to his interview and wise advice, we're going to turn to Brian for our quote.
You don't build a business, you build people. Then people build the business. Zig Ziglar.
Oh, my man Zig. He's good for a lot of quotes.
Yeah, he's good for a lot of things. Quotes being one of them. I got to hang out with, I'm sure we'll talk about this with Mr. Hagan, but got to hang out with Aaron recently, and my man's all about his people. That's like what he talked about. Systems, the business, the people, with the people coming first. So I have no doubt that his time and investment goes into the people, and then the people build the business. He was a delight. Good to hang with.
It speaks a lot to the culture, right? Like that type of mentality that goes with it. The culture that is birthed out of having that people first, people centric thought pattern. It creates a good place to work and a place for people to flourish, for people to grow, and for people to take the same journey that he did, going from a truck to owning his own business or, somewhere far up the ladder. It's really exciting. And speaking of exciting, Brian, like one thing that is exciting is seeing the development of people in that journey themselves, right? So we here at our own company, we have seen plenty of technicians grow from being in the truck to moving on to higher levels, a field supervisor, and eventually making the transition either into like a service manager role, assistant service manager role. It's really cool to see that, not only because it's exciting to watch somebody grow, but also because you get that fresh innovation coming from the field that is applied directly back into the field, right? It's like, here's all the things that I've seen in the field that I think could be better. And now I'm finally in a position where I can actually institute change like that and turn all that energy from the field right back into field to make it a better place. And we see that time and time again. I mean, Tyler's a perfect example. He came from the field. He's now our heating and air conditioning service manager. And man, has he revolutionized plenty of things.
Yeah. All three of our service managers came from a truck. Two of them learned the trade here. Yeah. Almost all of our supervisor managers came from trucks here.
Right. And
it's a great thing about the trades, man.
It is.
And it's somewhat unique to the trades as well. But let's talk electrical, all right? About HVAC.
That is what we're doing here.
Let's talk plumbing, but if we're not going to talk that on this episode at least, let's talk Sparky, baby. It's a tricky one to grow, isn't it?
I mean, I think we have a little bit of secret sauce there that's worked for us.
We do, but even with that, it's trickier to grow than the other two. Like you don't have the demand in electrical.
No, I think the last time I heard that, the average person has an electrician out every 5 to 7 years.
Yep.
And in terms of HVAC, I think it's
got that club membership,
1
baby.
to 2, and plumbing is 1 to 2 as well, something like that. Those are rough stats, but Yeah, just less call for the Sparkies.
Right. When's the last time someone you knew had an electrical emergency?
That they didn't first try to fix themselves, right?
Yeah, which is, it should be, really should be the one you're least likely to want to tinker with.
Out of all the things that could kill me.
Yeah. Well, if you look at research, Google the stats real quick on how many people died last year in your city in electrical fires versus plumbing floods or HVAC whatever's, I guess, carbon monoxide. Like electrical fires from the electrical system in the home kill people. That's real.
Right.
And it's not rare either. It's like, we were talking, that was like last year that we looked this up and we found like 3 news stories from that year where families had perished in fires caused by faulty electrical system in our county.
Maybe it's just like the simplicity of it. It's like, it's just a couple screws and some wire and a screwdriver.
Until you're Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's on the toilet. Cut the blue wire. That sucker just starts going off. You got to jump in the cast iron tub, huh?
It could be. I don't know.
Watch Lethal Weapon.
I'm not sure I ever have, so.
My goodness. I got to get a new co-host. You're wasting your life here.
I waste no day, Brian.
You waste a lot of days if you haven't seen the. All right. Anyway, let's get you on watching Lethal Weapon, and
okay.
Yeah. So, but it's a tough one to scale because you don't have the demand that you would have in HVAC and plumbing.
And people are so hungry for like estimates.
In Sparky.
Yes. Like I need an estimate to replace a light bulb in my 20-foot foyer, 20-foot ceiling foyer. I need an estimate to replace the light bulb. Like, okay.
Oh, I thought you were saying you personally. I actually have, no joke. I have a 15-foot A-frame ladder in my foyer right now set up because I was changing the light fixture.
See, there you go. I guarantee you one of our CSRs has taken that phone call in the last month.
But I'm doing it myself.
See?
There are electricians 20 feet from me right now. But yeah, my wife, like so many, cheap.
Yeah, likes to see Brian working.
Likes to see me on the top of a wiggling. There was a time in my
situations
life where if I died early and not of natural causes, growing up in Detroit, it was more than likely due to a drive-by.
Oh, I thought you were going to say there was a time in your life where Amelia actually would have cared.
About me falling off a ladder?
Yeah.
It's debatable. Now, at 42.
Now you got that life insurance policy.
No, if I go early, not from natural causes, falling off the top of an A-frame ladder in my foyer is high on the list of how that could happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Stupid dog.
Lifelong injuries waiting to happen.
We got a Rhodesian Ridgeback. It's like 105 pounds of muscle and about 5 grams of brain. And he just kept like.
Oh, that was the dog.
Yeah, I'm sitting.
Gotcha.
I'm sitting on the top of this ladder. Like I have to sit on the top to reach this, and it's got a little movement to it. I mean, it's not crazy unstable, but it moved a little. The dog would just run past and slam into it with his side, like it's not graceful. And I'm up there like teetering. It's in the middle of the foyer. Like there's no wall to touch. I can't touch a wall on any of the 4 sides. So like front to back, this thing doesn't move, but side to side, it's got a little give.
Legal note, Waste No Day is not advocating any type of exercise like this.
Enough with the malarkey.
Please have a professional electrician.
Call Mr. Sparky.
There it is. No, but you bring up a good point, Brian. It is difficult to grow an electrical business. And, we've seen in whether it's social media groups or just people that we've conversated with that there's a massive desire for more electrical sales training, growth strategies,
presentation training.
Right?
Yeah. It is good. It's good to have to come through that where you have to figure out how to get calls to your electrical business versus the other two, because you can't become weather dependent. I mean, you can become somewhat storm dependent, like certain types of storms will knock services out and stuff like that. But you're not going to build a business on hoping you get that kind of storm. So you have to get pretty crafty and creative. And we've done that to a decent extent here, where we can run a pretty busy and profitable electrical division. But it's not a $25 million electrical division
No,
like our friend Mr. Hagan's running over here.
Mr. Hagan, yes.
That's pretty legit. But you just got to fine tune everything all the time. You've got to be on top of your like social media presence and your SEO and your pay-per-click and all that stuff. I imagine people who only have an electrical division, they got to be some of the more creative marketers out there.
Unless any of you think that Mr. Hagan has it made in the shade and he just walked into a $25 million business, no, not at all. And you'll find out, I believe, more in this interview exactly where his roots are.
Pressing the gas pedal of an electrical truck, baby.
Is that like oxymoron? Oh, okay, I got you. I was trying to work that through.
Yeah, no, it's not an electric truck.
The gas pedal of an electric. Okay,
electrician truck. How about that?
Right, got it.
Yeah, he's from the field, but we'll get more into that with Aaron.
Yeah,
it would be really fun to talk about how to. Maybe we'll do a special side episode on how to generate more calls for your specific electrical company, right? Residential service electric, right? I mean, we're not going to spend too much time on like new construction and stuff, but how do you get more calls on the board for your electrical business?
I think just as a preview to what that episode could hold, one of the main things is really service agreements, which I think are underutilized in the electrical contractors world. I mean, it's typical of HVAC, right? Everybody's like, oh yeah, get your annual maintenance, your fall maintenance, your spring maintenance, whatever.
Yep.
And even to some degree in plumbing, where people are like, yeah, get your water heater flush and all that stuff. But I think electrical maintenance or electrical inspections, annual health checks,
safety inspections,
all that stuff is way, way underutilized.
We got a group chat where the guys will send in the guys doing the electrical safety inspections will send in some just insane stuff they find sometimes, where it's like the outside of an outlet looks like it was put in this morning, and then they pull the two screws out or pull the screw out and pull that thing off, and the inside is like cooked. Like it looks like it should smell like smoke.
Right. Yeah.
And that was just sitting there, behind a chair, not even being used, backstabbed or whatever. And nobody knew about it. It's just crazy. It's the type of stuff that I want to know about.
Absolutely. And how many homeowners go down and regularly look at their electrical panel, take off the cover and actually see behind it, right? It's just like how many people open up the hood of their car?
Not this one.
Right. Right. Not many. You don't know
I didn't understand what I was looking at before all the computers and stuff. Now it's a whole different animal.
It is. And yeah, man, we got tons of stuff to talk about in terms of electrical. Really excited for this interview. And without further ado, we're going to put Mr. Aaron Hagan in your passenger seat. Our guest today is Aaron Hagan. He is a second-generation electrician and started working for his dad during the summer when he was 12. Moving his way through some of the systems out there like Contractor 2000, which is now known as Nexstar, and then ESI, he eventually fell in love with the Mr. Sparky franchise model and bought into the franchise in 2009. He now owns 7 locations, including Northwest Arkansas, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Kansas City, and 2 locations in Phoenix and Austin, Texas. In his first year, in 2009, he did $369,000 in revenue. This year, 2022, they are on pace to finish with $25 million. We're excited to bring Aaron on the show. Welcome here, Aaron.
Hey, glad to be here, guys.
Glad to have you, buddy.
I'm a fan. Listen to this. We listen to this podcast all the time. We put it out to our employees and to our techs and to our managers alike. So
awesome. Hey, it was great having you on today, Aaron. Thanks for calling in.
It's it's the only reason we got you on here.
So. Nice plug. Just a nice plug.
Yep, that's just a nice commercial. Thanks though. No, Aaron and I don't think it was the first time we met last week, was it? It may have been.
Gosh, may have been.
I know we've had to have bumped into each other.
Brian is pretty forgettable, so I wouldn't blame him.
Brian is very forgettable. But it was certainly the first time we got to hang out, and Aaron and I and Lenny Sears and a few other people, Michael Green from Ben Franklin Corporate and Mark Dawson and a few other people all got to hang out and ride around in a rented Bronco together and really kind of get to know each other last week in Myrtle Beach. So it was a great time, and specifically wanted to thank you, as my wife and I were talking about yesterday, for buying us a nice steak dinner while we were down there.
I'm glad to do it. It's the least I could do. I mean, you hauled me around all over Myrtle Beach, so that was the least I could do.
No, we used this app. Was awesome because there were no rental cars available. So we were there for like a franchise function put on by Authority Brands. But my wife and I stayed a couple of extra days. I think she didn't tell her mom that we were only there for 3 days, and then we stayed for 5, so she would continue to watch our 4 children for us. Thank you very much, Tammy. And so we wanted a rental car, so we weren't just at the hotel the whole time. And there were 0 available. Went through the app, went to the rental car companies, went through the airport, couldn't get one. So we checked out this Turo app, and cool lady Alyssa rented us her Ford Bronco for the week. It was like $100 a day, which is about what we'd pay a rental car company for a nicer vehicle. And it worked out well because we got to kind of roll around together and had a good time.
Good.
And no, we're not sponsored by Ford or the Turo app. Thank you.
Although the app is handy right now because rentals are very difficult.
Yeah, that was very handy. And it's there's no like rental car place to go to. Like Alyssa texted me, hey, it's in short-term parking lot B3 or whatever. So I just like walk out of the airport and look ahead, and there's the short-term parking, walk across the street, and it's sitting right there. And you use the app to open the door. I'm like, man, the technology these days, these kids got it made.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Speaking of having it made,
cool.
We are talking to you because you are well on your way to having it made as somebody who is taking the electrical career, not only from in the truck to now owning your own business, and from 2 trucks to now dozens. And we really want to hear about your story and what that all entailed, how you got there, and what's been the differentiator as to that growth compared to others and what you've done to be so successful. So let's dig in with that, Aaron, if you don't mind. We'd love to start off by just kind of checking in with you and your background. Where do you come from? What's your story?
Oh, man. If we go back first, I'll start where we are right now. We've done, I have an amazing staff, amazing team of people that are around me. And the reason why we're able to grow and see the things that we're doing right now is honestly because of the leadership team that we have right now. So they've done an amazing job, and honestly, they're carrying me at this point, doing an amazing job with that. But starting at the very beginning, man, I can tell you that my story is a story probably like a lot of other business owners that are out there that have done this for very long at all. It's a story getting punched in the face, over and over again, and having to figure out how to get myself back up, and what I found out is as I got, continually knocked down and run into obstacles, that I began to learn that, hey, that doesn't feel good. I shouldn't try that again. I shouldn't do that again, and do something different. And just adjusting, it just has to do a lot with grit, I think, at that point, more than it did with anything. I started as an electrician. I'm a 2nd-generation electrician. My dad's an electrician. So I worked with him in a one-man shop. That's what he did. That's kind of what he liked. He really didn't want any employees, and I remember starting with him, and I did. I was like, man, I want to do something. I want to have something a little bit bigger than this, and build something. And so we started working towards that. And long story short, and my brother came along with us, and then in 2000, I think it's around 2007, 2008. We kind of decided at that point it was rough sailing. We had too many chiefs and not enough Indians to make this thing work, and so we kind of split ways. And I took the company and at that point I decided to buy into this franchise, this Mr. Sparky franchise. At that point was, I think maybe a couple of years in at that point, very brand new. but I was super excited about it. And I was starting that first year that we were part of the franchise. In 2009, I believe we did, I think, $369,000 that year, with me partially doing some other things. I was doing some real estate stuff. I was building some houses, and then I'm also an electrician. I was also in the truck and had a couple other guys that worked for me at that point. And then of course, if you guys remember back, both of you guys are young guys. I don't know if you remember back in about that time, that the housing, the housing market just kind of crashed at that point. And we went into a recession, and things got really, really difficult there. And this is kind of part of one of those stories of where I kind of got punched in the face early on, and had to figure out whether I was going to get back up or I was going to quit or what was going to happen. And I had some real estate deals that were going on there and ended up falling through. Really no fault of my own, but it ended up happening, and ended up having to file for bankruptcy, which is something I'm not proud of, but it's part of my story. It's part of why I'm here today. And it made the road really difficult. But what I found is when you hit those obstacles in life in general, in business in general, if you make it through those obstacles, there are blessings on the other side of that. There are opportunities or blessings, that you learn through that piece. And I learned a lot because I just started that business. I mean, we had just started this business. Hopefully you guys don't know anything about bankruptcy, but at that point, I didn't have a credit card to fall back on. I couldn't go out and buy new vehicles. I had to have cash to buy vehicles, or borrow money in other ways to be able to make it happen. So I had to figure a lot out. And, for 10 years that followed me around. But I learned a whole lot, and I built a foundation because of that. But I remember when that happened, Brian, I know you know him, Nate. I'm not sure if you do, but you guys remember Terry Nicholson, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So Terry was the head of the franchise back then, or one of the top guys in the franchise. And I remember after I filed that bankruptcy, that I got a call from Terry, and it was a call that I was dreading more than any other call, and I was under huge amounts of stress anyway. But the one thing I didn't want to lose was this business and this franchise, because I just love this. I bleed the Sparky red. It is something that to this day, I love this brand. I love the Mr. Sparky brand. I love it because, I got to go and visit Patrick Kennedy, and not many people, I don't hear many people on these podcasts and different things talk a ton about Patrick Kennedy, but man, he was just a mentor. He was a guy that changed this electrical industry. And I think most of the guys that are having success today can point back and say that because of the things that he innovated back then, we're here today. And
whether they know it or not, most of them probably don't even know it.
Yes. And so I visited Patrick's shop multiple times, and got to sit down and talk with him and learn a lot. And man, I did not want to lose this business. And I remember Terry saying, "Hey, I got this paperwork that you filed bankruptcy. Tell me about this. What was going on?" And I had this huge fear inside of me that he was going to say, "You know what? Well, we need to end this. This is too big of a risk. At this point." Because I was a nobody. I was nothing. I was, a little small guy that was barely any revenue at all. And I remember telling Terry at that point, I said, "Hey, Terry, I promise you, you will not regret giving me this chance and letting me keep this franchise. I promise you, I'm going to build this up into something that makes you proud and makes this franchise proud." And still kind of gives me chill bumps today when I think about that at that point. And from that point on, it wasn't smooth sailing at all, but I had a direction, and I think it was a positive thing, because when those kind of things happen, going through a bankruptcy and basically having several different forms of streams of income to having one, I had to focus in on this Mr. Sparky. And like I said, we figured it out, began to build and begin to grow. And I had to suck up a lot. My mom owned a real estate company, and I talked her into just letting me have one of the little offices in there, and that's what I kind of ran our business out of, was just a little office in the back for a lot of years, early on in that. I remember the first time I got to do any advertising other than the Yellow Pages, back in the day, and that was, I had just paid off a van, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to put that money towards some radio. And, at that point, I just dug in. I began to make phone calls and I began to visit other shops every chance that I could and learn everything I could from these other amazing owners that were out there that had so much knowledge. I just wanted to soak in whatever I could. And I mean, the network, the Mr. Sparky network, this network, man, it's a reason why we're here today. I learned so much, and I'm so grateful for the people that allowed me to come in there. And I had a friend that told me one time, this is kind of funny. He's like, hey, I understand why you're where you're at. It's because you're not afraid to ask stupid questions.
Was that his polite way of telling you just asked a stupid question? Or that's something Nate would do,
I was like, it took a second, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take this way. This is what he really meant, was that, he's not afraid to, I wasn't afraid to ask questions that others, were afraid to ask because they're afraid it's going to make them look stupid, because we just didn't know. I mean, it was early days in this business. I'm an electrician. I went to college just enough, long enough to flunk out. You know what I mean? And that, that pretty much was my story as far as college. I didn't have that. And so when we got in this business, I had no idea how to even I didn't know what gross margin was at that point. I had literally embarrassing moment. I would go to these meetings and people were talking about their KPIs and their gross margin and all this stuff. And I remember back then you didn't have Google, which really ages me, or at least you didn't have it on your phone. You had to go back at somewhere and be able to look it up. But I remember going to Barnes and Noble and picking up, one of those yellow books that said Financials for Dummies, and looking up what all that terminology meant, because I didn't know what it meant at that point. But I dug in, and I had a lot of help from a lot of people, and we were able to continue to grow, and we continue to do a lot of, we had a nice positive trajectory, and we got hit in the face again in 2017, which we're established. We're a $5 million company at that point, and during that year, we lost every single tech that we had. We lost. We did not have a single guy that from January to December they ended up saying I had built, and this is on me, I had built a toxic culture. Didn't realize I was building a toxic culture, but I was. That's
so strange to hear, because just being around you and getting to talk to you here recently, you're the furthest possible thing away from a toxic person. But it does go to show that if your focus is not on what your culture is becoming, it will just become toxic. It's like your backyard. If you don't plant grass seed and water it and put fertilizer and weed and feed on there, you will just naturally grow weeds. You don't have to promote it. Is that kind of what happened in your shop's case?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. What was happening was, I'm ultra competitive. I mean, like, I don't know if you guys have ever done the Strength Finders test, and it kind of gives you your top 5 strengths. And it bases it off of, I think, 31 different strengths, and you can get your top 5 strengths out of that. Well,
no, I haven't seen. I've not. Is that just something online?
Oh no, yeah, it's a Gallup. Gallup is the one that does this, and I think they've changed it. They changed the name of it now. I'll look it up and tell you exactly what that is. But it originally was Strength Finders, but it was from the Gallup group. Does all the research and everything, and so they had put these. It's fascinating. I mean, it's really, really good stuff. It goes along with don't know if you guys do a lot of personality testing and stuff like that, but it kind of works hand in hand with that. It tells you your strengths, not necessarily your weaknesses. And it gave me my top 5 strengths, and my number 1 strength was competition. And it was true to a point that, you know, I was pushing competition. I felt like it was the best way for us to grow our business. I mean, we had banners in our training room of guys' record numbers, and every year we'd have a banner ceremony. And if someone beat someone else's record, we took down that banner and we put their banner with their name on it, their new record, you know, on it, and we put it up over the other one. They got to take the old one down, you know, and that was our culture. That was what it was. It was man, we were competing, and it got to the point that it got really toxic. And about that time, I started reading several books, and we started really working on our culture. We really started working on our core values and our mission statement and all these kind of things. And so we really started to find it. And I was like, man, we are not what I want us to be right now. And so when we started making those changes, we had to let a couple of high performers go, and then it spiraled at that point.
Before we get too far off of it, if you read a handful of culture building books, what would you say was the most impactful book that if a listener wants to pick one up and check it out?
I think Traction is a great book. One that I really gravitated to is called Scaling Up, and it was one that I had to read several times because it was out of my league when I first read it the first time. So it's one of those kind that I read it, I listened to it, and then I read it again, I listened to it again, and several times, and I would take chapter by chapter and be able to pick that stuff up. And then when I started learning, hey, here's some, there's some really great tidbits in here, but I've got to get some of these other things straight as far as culture goes. I really started looking into, you know, our core values and our mission statement, and I want something really original to us. And I think it was back in like 2016 that we really started making those changes. And you can go back. There's a great podcast, and I think we talked about this one the other day, but Craig Groeschel, Leadership Podcast, has some just great information, really, really good stuff. And if you go back and search it, he has things on that, on core values. I even went into, some people may not have heard of him, but a guy named Andy Stanley. He's a pastor of a really large church, but he has great leadership material.
Yeah, he's Charles Stanley's son, right?
Yes, he is. That's exactly right. And he has some amazing leadership stuff. But if you go back in his podcast, he has some really good stuff talking about setting up your core values and your mission statement or vision statement. And so
not just that too, but when I first got into management here, when Larry Rohr was the owner, I don't think actually I wasn't even in management. I was in a truck. You know, I was fresh out of rehab where I had been just kind of locked away, getting clean and getting right. And my wife and 2 kids at the time were in my mom's basement. So when I got out, it was like, you know, thank God Larry Rohr and Matt Buckwalter hired me. But I hit the ground running. Like I had no intention of being home ever. And Larry handed me a book as I was putting in 60-hour weeks, just working anytime I could to, we had debt all of a sudden and a low credit score. And I wanted to get out of all this and buy a home. And he handed me this book by Andy Stanley I believe it was called Choosing to Cheat. And it was all about priorities and putting work. Now imagine the boss, the owner of the company, handing you a book like this because he thinks you're working too much. And this book was all about putting work and money before the family. But and this was an Andy Stanley book.
Mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
Yeah, sorry. Go on.
No, man, no. I think that absolutely feels right in there. But that was what happened. Come to find out, what I started finding out some different things. When we started trying to change that culture, we started having a little bit of a revolt. People started revolting against, saying, this is not what I want it to be. And then when we started clearing people out, it was like, I mean, we literally lost every tech that we had at that point, in 3 different locations, every tech. And what happened through that, it's like, seriously, when I talk about getting knocked down and having to figure out how to get back up, Daryl Boyd, who's my COO, also my best friend, just an amazing business guy, but, has the same heart for this business and for this trade and for Mr. Sparky. But, we just went on a tour and we started training. We started recruiting and training. That's all we did for like a year. And a year later, we had built back up with brand new techs back up to the same place that we were. And honestly, that was a launching point of where we took off. We had kind of hit some brick walls of that 5 million for several years. And so that's what I mean by some of those roadblocks, those obstacles you run into. Really, truly, there's some blessings there if you can get through them. And you can learn from what you do there. And that changed our whole philosophy in training. We saw how we could get techs up and going. Back in those days, it was taking, 6-8 months to a year to get a guy really performing to where he could at his peak. And we started finding out, hey, we do it this way, and we do it more frequent, and we follow this plan. We can get guys running in a month or two, to the point that it was taking like 6 or 8 months to get guys going, to get to that point before. And so we just, it was a blessing. It truly was a blessing. It helped us be able to do that. Now, and we tell our electricians every single day, hey, this company was built on training. We will train. We don't miss training. We never cancel a training class ever. It just doesn't happen. We're going to have it because we're going to live or die by that training. And we believe that through that piece. And so, basically our story is that, guys. It was coming and learning from mistakes that we had and being able to have a little bit of grit to be able to push through them and go on. And from that point, we've really kind of taken off, and, we're opening our 7th location here next month. So, and things are going very good. We have amazing system and processes in place. We've got the best culture that I could ever imagine within our business. Our people love each other. We had a guy this just happened yesterday, and this is amazing. But he got a call during our training, and he had to leave right in the middle of it. And he found out his house was on fire, and he left out. And we have a management meeting every morning at 8:30, and all the managers get on there, and we just a quick, we call it scrum, just kind of a quick talking about things that we had done yesterday, things today, kind of keep everybody up to date. And on scrum, the manager there in Oklahoma City said, yeah, he left, his house was on fire, and basically found out that when he got there, his house was completely burned down. It was completely burned down. And this morning he was telling us after that, we were able to help and get him an Airbnb and something that he had a place. But, it wasn't just a place to lay his head. It was like they had no clothes. They had nothing at that point. And those guys in that shop put an envelope together that morning and started taking cash funds just to be able to help him, just to be able to go out and do that. And we've opened that up company wide, and there's thousands of dollars just from being part of this family, being a part of this culture. And to think back in that toxic culture that we had, back in the day, to now looking at it where it is today, and to see that those guys just said, hey, this is one of my brothers, and let's put, let's help. I mean, this envelope was, you should see it. This envelope was full, of $100 bills. These guys just were going to get money and putting in this fund for their brother. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Be
able
to see that. So to go full circle in that culture size and be able to see that, it was really good.
Really cool.
When did you say this happened?
This happened 2 days ago.
Oh, geez.
Yesterday is when the fire happened. So
Wow.
You're talking about?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Today is when they had the envelope, put the envelope together and put the money together. I saw that this morning. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what I've caught so far, grit, getting punched in the face, and being able to take it standing up. Certainly the determination to keep going when the skies are gray and, in bankruptcy, and the fear that you're going to be booted out of the brand, and humility in terms of not being afraid to learn from anyone and asking the questions that most people would be embarrassed to ask. What else?
Mm-hmm.
And also an evolution, really, because or adaptation perhaps is a better phrase in that you were willing to take the things that you had learned and then totally turn it on its head and go from a culture that was admittedly toxic to one that was, tech friendly and tech based and training based and those types of things. And yeah, we can get stubborn in our ways and just say, well, okay, I just had the wrong people. We're going to stick with what worked or what I think is going to work, and then we're just going to try to build it again. But that's not what you did. You reframed it and went back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a humbling time. There was never any quit in me, but going back and looking at that, as we went through that, I mean, there were a lot of moments where, Daryl and I would look at each other when we were driving to Oklahoma City to meet with a recruit or do a training class, and we weren't going to talk about it, but there was a little bit of worry there about, what was going to happen there, how we're going to pay the bills and everything like that. So we knew that when we get the thing built back up, there was zero way we were going to go back to that type of culture. And today, I can tell you, I don't care how big and how good the performer is, the tech that we have in the field, or how much he's producing as far as revenue goes. If he begins to get toxic and we can't get that in line, he's gone. We are not going to allow it to infiltrate our culture ever again. And we keep ourselves in check as well to make sure we're not pushing something that could be that could take us to a toxic level.
So speaking of the training that you're doing, are you focusing mostly on technical training or life training, a blend of the two? What do you focus on there?
So we do a variety of things. Our staples that we have, and probably like you guys, we do a Tuesday, Thursday training, which is really a Tuesdays is a teaching training, where it's more about communication, and there may be some different things about life and motivation and different things like that in there, or it may just be strictly on, hey, here's how you work on your conversion rate type stuff. It may be something like that. And then our Thursday training is basically a role play technical training. Is that what we do? And then we have a Tuesday training, which is all for guys that are apprentices, and they're working on passing their test. It's basically a code test in class where guys can get on video. All the stuff is, we do all these things via video. So all these classes are done, because my whole goal when we started building these multiple locations, it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, I wanted it to feel like we were one big company. And I always wanted to have that feel like we're one big family. Everybody could see everybody else on the video screen, and we could, reach out to each other when we needed help and different things like that. And so early on, I invested in video conferencing equipment. And so we've had video conferencing stuff that we use. So these guys can log in from anywhere. If they want to the shop, they can do it. Most of the time they get on their iPads and they log into this, and we have a guy that trains that class. And we also do a lot of leadership type training. So
we had another. I want to talk about that leadership training thing, but I also want to give. We got a guy who lives, about an hour and a half away from the shop, and has his jobs out close to his house. So this morning, James Schmidt, he was on my Zoom for my training this morning, and we had him do some role playing. Well, he got to be a tech talking to a client over the phone, so that was fun. Good job, James Schmidt. He nailed it, killed it.
You know what's fun? What's fun about when you start learning the video conferencing and how you can utilize that? I don't think we'd be where we are today going through COVID had we not had the video conferencing set up. And so, to give you an example, so when everything went down with COVID and everything got shut down, we didn't know what was going to happen at that point. But to give you a little background, our meeting rhythm is every morning we meet, which some people might call this training. We don't call it training necessarily, although we do get into some training aspects of it. But we have a huddle every morning it's designed to be a 10-minute huddle with everybody logs in from every location, whether it be from the shop or from, your van pulled over in a parking lot on your iPad or whatever, and they get in and it's kind of a fun rah, get guys excited, and we go over numbers. We talk about the guys that had the best day the day before, and we give props to bro brags to other guys that helped them, came and helped them out, and do different things like that. But during COVID, we learned it was another learning moment for us. We learned that, man, this is an amazing tool for this, because we were able to get everybody in remotely because we weren't coming into the office at that point. They were able to log in, and we were able to have these huddles and be able to continue kind of that feel, not the same thing as being in the office, but it was as close as we get, that feel every morning. And we got to keep it light with guys. So, it wasn't the fear of what was going to go on. And our thing is, hey, we're coming out stronger than we came into it. We're going to train. We're going to change some things up. And we got all of our training on video. We got a platform now that we're using to have every bit of our training where guys can log onto that and see every single training class that we do. It's there for them to be able to log in and be able to see it, along with our technical training class. So through that piece, we even continued to learn and get better. And today we're better because of the things that we learned going through COVID, and how even more we could utilize the video in that aspect of it.
I think you're spot on there, man. And COVID was just another example of your demonstration of grit. Hey, a lot of people just sat on their hands and said, what are we going to do? What can we do? I guess we're just going to shut down. And yet the trades in many ways cannot do that. And so shout out to you. And I think many people in the trades who not only pushed through a difficult time, but exploded on the other side of it, and demonstrated that grit in that I'm just not going to let this affect where we're going. We're still going to keep moving forward.
And it's a powerful thing if you can grab hold of it and do it. It's one of the things that I think is essential in leadership, man. You gotta have that grit and that be able to drive and determination to be able to continue. And I'm far from the only guy that does that. There are lots of business owners that deal with those kind of things, and they've had to deal with those kind of things, and they've been able to push through those things. And with other guys that may be going through some of those things right now, and so it's hopefully they can hear this and be able to have a little bit of encouragement that you just keep pushing through those obstacles.
Absolutely. Now, Aaron, I want to ask you some things from your background as an electrician, because a lot of our listener base is frontline people. And so it's always interesting when we get somebody on the show who started their career behind a steering wheel and now sits behind a desk. And I think you're no different there. How did you make that jump, not only physically in terms of developing your career and literally getting out of a truck, but also mentally, because it is different, right?
It really is different. It's different. There are positive and negative. There's an advantage today. I know, I still do a lot of our training that I'll get on and do that. I have and it's because I have the confidence of what I did when I was in the field. I know the things that these guys are going through. I know it's not as easy as other people that haven't been there and haven't done that, haven't busted their knuckles had to crawl up in hot attics and do all those type of things. You know, I get that. I understand that piece, but also it gives me credibility, you know, with our guys also to be able to know he's not just a, you know, this suit that's up there trying to tell us what to do at that point. But no, for me, it was a plan. I wanted to build something. I've been an entrepreneur at heart for a long time. I'm an electrician, proudly. If someone asks me, what do you do? My answer is I'm an electrician, and it still is to this day. I'm an electrician. I'm proud of being an electrician. But I also wanted to grow a business, I wanted to build a business. So I tried to learn everything I could do to move from the truck into the office, into more an area where I could work on the business and not necessarily in the business. And you know, I learned this from some people take that way too literal, right? So they just drop working in the field and they go into the office, and that's it. It's not like that. There's a transition time, you know, in there. You can't just quit and say, I'm not going to go out and do that. And we have managers today, and that's one of the things that we train on when they come into our ops management training is, hey, you're still going to wear a uniform. You're still ready. You're going to have to run calls. You got to be ready to run calls. This is not about, hey, I've just moved into the office and now I'm going to sit, you know, at a desk all day long, because I want them to have the attitude of, hey, I'm an electrician. You know, this is what I do at this point. So it would, to answer your question, I don't know if I have or not, Nate, but it was something that I wanted and I worked towards, and it was a little strategic. And I think maybe I moved in maybe a little bit sooner than what a lot of other people would have, but I think it was my drive and determination to be able to build that business is what drove me to do that. And I think we're better for it today because I was able to do that. Because sometimes you can also do the other way, right? You can stay in the truck way too long, and you can never do more than what you can do yourself when you're in the field. But if I could move out of the truck and I could start, multiplying myself, that's out there and try to train guys. And that was one thing that I was very confident that I could train guys. And so that's what I really focused on. I went and trained guys. I rode along with guys. I focused on our training aspect of what we had to do and how we were gonna do that. And I learned from a lot of other really, really good people. For instance, you know, like I talked earlier, Patrick Kennedy and his group when he was in Atlanta, learned a ton from those guys.
When's the last time you strapped on a tool belt there, Aaron?
I had a tool belt on this weekend, buddy.
My man. In front of a client or in front of your spouse?
My guys are going to listen to that and laugh. No, I was working around my house trying to figure out why my GFCI was tripping. So that's what I was doing.
Did you call your service manager like I do?
I did not. I didn't, but we did. We got it figured out. It was tricky, but I got it figured out. No, it's been a while.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking is because, you know, time is a great perspective giver, right? So you've been out of a truck for a while, you know, and you're not seeing the day-to-day things, but you do have a view of things, a different paradigm. And I guess the reason I'm asking is because the trades is one of those unique opportunities that gives people the ladder to get from the base level to the top level. Absolutely. Like the whole way through, and fairly quickly in terms of many other corporations or industries. As you think back upon your years in a truck and now you look at where you are today and the steps that you took or were afforded to you and the things that you did and challenged and all that throughout that entire time, what would you say for somebody who's listening to this now, you know, behind their steering wheel, what would you say would be the things that they should be refining in their own life to make the jump far easier and more effective than perhaps it would be if they would just keep on doing whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah. So I feel their pain. I've been there. I've been the guy that was running the service call, the CCR that was answering the phones, and I guess you could say I was a dispatcher as well. I even took complaint calls while I was driving, leaving someone's house that somebody said I pulled in front of them or something like that. So,
Oh.
yeah, I feel that. Right?
It's got to be great to have that come right to your cell phone. We're like, were you in a you were in a blue Cadillac? Yeah. Well, you deserved it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yes. Some of those didn't go so well, but I think the best day in my own career was when I could hand all the customer complaints to someone else, and I didn't have to handle those personally every single day. Because I think us as business owners, these are our babies, and it's so personal to us, right? And when those kind of things come in, it just guts me. I can't stand to have something negative being said, and I want to be able to fix it. But to say a guy that was out there and how you make that transition, I would say, number one, you need to invest in training. Because you got to get your guys up and going, and you're going to have to carry some guys for a little bit.
Is that training of yourself, or is that investing in becoming a trainer?
So I think, if you're an electrician in a truck, driving a truck, and you own a business right now, then you got what it takes to train your people. But you got to invest in yourself and start beginning to learn and be able to understand that I've got to be able to train other guys to step into this spot before I can step out of it. And there's got to be a process to that. And, I don't know the size, where that was at. Like I said, I think, before I opened my second location was in 2013. I was fully out of a truck by then. But my mindset, and that's the other part of it, your mindset, right? That's kind of part of that grit piece, but the mindset piece, you've got to be dialed in and know that, hey, this will not fail. I remember when I opened up the Oklahoma City location, which was my second location, and that was 2013. In the electrical industry and in the trades in general, there wasn't a whole lot of multi-location operators out there that you could look at and say, hey, how do I learn this and that? And so my mindset was like, I will not fail. I cannot fail. I will not fail. I will not fail at this. And every day I work to make sure that location thrived. And today it's our largest location that we have, and they're flourishing. We got amazing managers that are there, and they've done really well. But I had to pull myself out of the van before I could ever get to that point, because I had to focus on it. But what I focused on, and this may not be for everybody, but what I focused in was on training. And I listened to everything that I could possibly find on training, from anything that our brands put out to Charlie Greer back in the day, to so many other guys that are out there today that I just devoured everything that I possibly could do and learn. And so I don't know if that, Nate, it doesn't feel like that answered the question exactly, because I don't know if I can pinpoint it. All I can say is, if you want to get out of it, you've got to learn how to train and coach your people. And when I talk to my ops managers, we talk about, this is what you need to focus in on. You need to spend a third of your time with the operations. That means, your payroll reports, any other kind of reports that these guys have to do on a daily basis, for us, making sure their KPIs are in check, that they've got those in those places. And then another third of your time needs to be recruiting. And because our guys are still, our ops managers are still our recruiters at that point. And I think they're the best fit for that. I think it works. We have a recruiting coordinator at our office, but they send all these leads out to our ops manager. So we train on that, how to handle recruits. So you need to be able to recruit. And thirdly, you got to be a coach. You got to know how to coach somebody. You got to be willing to coach somebody and have that coach's heart that you want to see these guys improve. And so that's what I look at. That's what I teach, and that's what I did.
No, I think those absolutely. Those three things are excellent and just a really simple way of breaking down focus points for people who are in a truck right now who are looking to get out of it. So review that one more time. You got to be a good coach. You have to have a strong understanding of the financials, and you got to be a good recruiter.
Yes.
And those are, I mean, you're absolutely right. Those are three of the absolute main things that anybody in the office who's in an operations role or service manager role or any of those levels needs to be focusing on, because without one of those components, the other two start falling apart really quickly. Like if you can't recruit good people, well, there's no need to pull financial reports because it's not going to matter. If you can't coach your people well, you better spend a lot of time pulling financial reports because it's going to be painful. And if you can't coach people, then I mean, all the great recruiting and financial reports in the world is going to mean very little to you because your people are going to leave or they're not going to get better.
Or you're not going to get better, because if you can't do the operational side and you can't do the recruiting side, you better be dang good at coaching guys, right?
Right.
And that's what we tell them, is that you better be a really good coach. And that's something that we look for when we promote guys, and we love to promote guys from within. Brian, I know we talked about our ops management, our ops leadership training that we do for guys, but we just had a class, and we had 5 guys in that class, and 3 of them, that was a month ago, 3 of those guys we promoted into ops management roles out of that class. And that's one thing that those are the 3 things that we focus in on. You've got to learn these 3 things. And when you're an electrician or tech or anything like that, and you're moving from the field into the office, the most daunting thing for these guys, and where they spend and think 90% of the time, are on the operation side, understanding, your financial metrics, that type of stuff, understanding how to, input different things on the computer, where to find things, on your computer, and how to use those things. And it just overwhelms them to that point. I think that's the same thing that probably happens with a lot of owners that are just starting out in the van. They get overwhelmed by that piece. But if you can recruit and you can train guys and you can coach guys, I say those 2 you gotta have. If you're growth minded, you gotta have those 2. I mean, you can find someone to help you with your financials and to go over that, and you can learn that from somebody. But if you can't coach and you can't recruit, then you're gonna have a hard time growing a business today.
Or you better be starting with some finances, because you can pay for those things.
Well, you'll burn through them if you don't know how to continue to train your guys, because your guys are going to go out and blow calls. You know what I mean? At that point.
So, Aaron, I mean, great stuff there. And as we kind of shift gears here to perhaps some owners that are listening, I think the average electrical shop across the nation is probably $1 to $3 million, $1 to $5 million and under, I'm guessing. And you're 5 times that, right? And so at least 5 times that. In rounding out this year in the 25 million mark or somewhere above there, what is it that gets you that scale? I mean, how did you successfully take 2 trucks, you being in one of them, to now, how many do you have on the road now?
I think we're at 55 trucks right now.
55 trucks. How do you go from 2 trucks to 55 trucks, from 400,000 to 25 million?
No. From 2 trucks to 2017 to 0 trucks.
Oh, that's true. The rebuild.
Back to 55 in 5 years.
Right. How do you do that?
It's just like what we talked about. It's like, that old saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? That's exactly it. You got to focus in on one thing and be able to get better at that, and then be able to move on beyond that. So I would say, it's exactly, I surrounded myself with people that were smarter than me, number one, especially in these past maybe 5, 6, 7 years. I've got a couple of my top managers have been there with me for 7 years right now, and I wasn't afraid to hire people that were smarter than me. And that means that one of that is I had to be able to recruit those people, right? I had to talk them into coming and working for me. I had to sometimes I had to pay them more than what I could sometimes in my own mind justify, paying them to be able to get them in there to be able to work for me. But the biggest piece is being dedicated to training your people, developing your people, continuing to develop them. I mean, from the time they're apprentices to helping them get their licensing, to getting to the point that, we've got, you guys are the same way. You got guys that are making, we got a guy that made over $200,000, with us, and multiple, and a whole slew of guys that are making 6 figures, that are there, and it's investing in those guys, developing those guys. And it's been fun to watch those guys move into a leadership role with us, because those guys believe in what we do. They believe in our system, and I would rather have those guys leading my people, rather than have somebody from the outside come in to be able to do that. I love to promote from within, and that's because we're continuing to develop these guys so they are ready to be able to do it. But it goes back to, Nate, to answer your question, it goes back, if you ask me honestly, it goes back to training and developing your people. Training and developing your people, and, always being prepared. Never, we don't cancel classes. We don't take excuses for guys missing training. I mean, there's not an excuse work-wise that you miss your training. I mean, today, if they go to a job early, then they sit out in the truck and they watch it, on their iPad with us. At that point, it's that kind of dedication, saying, hey, we will not move away from this idea. We're going to continue to stay on this. This is who we are. Training is one of our core values, and it's our foundation of what we grow this business. So, to me, and I say that because that's where my heart is. At the heart, I'm a coach and a trainer, and I love that. Still today, love that. I get to train today more managers than I do techs, but I still love it.
No, I can hear it in your voice, Aaron, and I think, just listening to you, you can sense that coach's heart that you're bringing through on the mics here. And you mentioned that training is one of your core values because it's one of those next level commitments that you are just saying, like, we're not surrendering on this piece. It doesn't matter what. If you don't mind sharing, what are the other core values that you have implemented into your business, and how do you actually practically put them out there?
So, yeah, we have our core values there. We talk about our core values in every one of our training meetings. So we'll talk about that. As a matter of fact, we call it our number one core value. And it's not that it's more important than the others, but it's bigger, and it's who we are. And we will make every home safer. We'll make every home safer than we found it. Not because it's our job, but because it's our responsibility. And that's what we preach to our guys. If you're doing your job, you're making every home safer than you found it, because that's your responsibility. Being a Mr. Sparky electrician, if you want to be Mr. Sparky electrician, you want to work with us, then it's another level. You have to see it. It's not about money. It's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be bigger than, what your paycheck is, or how much you make or anything like that. It's got to be about making people's homes safer, because that's when it all boils down. That's what it is. we were talking about this morning in our training class and talking about how when we go out and we talk to clients, we're not selling. It's not about selling at all. It's about educating. And we're going to talk about safety. Why? Because I want to sleep well at night. So when I leave the home, I want to make sure that I've educated that client, that we've talked about everything that I found. We're going to do a safety inspection on every home. So everything that we found, we're going to talk to the client about. Why? Because they don't have, it's not that they have to do it. I just want them to understand it. Because when I leave, they may decide not to do it, but it's not because I didn't make them aware. And at least they're a little better prepared and a little safer just because they know what's going on within their home. So when you talk about core values, that's the big one. That's number one we talk about. We're going to do the right thing, and even if it's not easy. And that's another one. Do the right thing, even when it's not easy, because it's easy to make. Sometimes it's easy to make a decision. You make a decision sometimes because it's easy. It's an easy decision to make, not the right decision to make, right? And that's something that we talk about, and that's part of who we are. If we don't stand up, we have the same warranty that you guys have. We're 100% satisfaction guaranteed warranty, and we give that to our clients. And we want our guys to talk about that with a client. And we're going to live up to it. And sometimes that's a tough decision to make. I remember several years ago, we had a client that called and was upset about some work that we did. And it was a large job. It was a $15,000 job. And they were upset with some of the work that we'd done. And honestly, they would not allow us to come out there and fix it, even though as much as we wanted to be able to come out there and take care of it for them, they just wouldn't allow us to come out there and do it until we sat back and said, hey, this is our core value. This is what we had to do. It was the biggest hit that I had taken at one time, and wrote a check out for $15,000. And honestly, it's paid for itself over and over and over again, because we use that 100% satisfaction guaranteed on every call. We educate, we talk to our client about that. They know it. And because we do that, because we paid that, now they have a story to talk to the client and say, hey, this happened. This is real. I was here. I know when this happened. And, and there's only a handful of those that we've had to do that. And some of them are big ticket. Some of them aren't so much, but it's who we are. And it was the right decision, because that's who we are. It's what we set out to be. And that's what we're going to continue to be. So, that was we're talking about core values. You're going to try to get us back on track. Sorry guys, I can get off track.
No, that's good.
Yeah. So we have 7 core values that we live by, and one of them we talked about earlier in the story of Cody, my electrician in Oklahoma City, that his house burnt down, and everyone kind of teamed up together to be able to help him at that point. One of our core values is we are family. We believe that a healthy family at home is what makes a healthy family at work possible. And that's part of it. We're family. We're gonna treat each other like a family. We're gonna treat each other with respect, but we're also gonna be there for each other. And man, what a great example. And that's not the first time. It's just a really recent time that's happened. It's so cool to see that. And we do some other things to put some teeth behind that. So we do something that we call family days, because I believe it. I had kids a little later in life, and so I had to learn this later on, because early in my career, I worked 60, 80 hours a week, and I busted, and that's just what I did, and I expect everyone around me to do the same thing, right? And I didn't think about their families. I didn't have a family to worry about. And so I didn't think about that piece. When I did get married and I did have kids and begin to see how that affected me and how that affected other people, I looked at it differently. And so we put these 4 family days out there. It's 4 days. It's paid days off. that you can use anytime throughout the year. It's in addition to your vacation days. It's in addition to all of that PTO, it's all that kind of stuff. It's 4 additional days that we add on that you can use, half days or whatever, because we understand there are times that guys, you know, want to go to their kids' performance on a Tuesday morning, right? And it's going to be at school and they're performing doing something, or they got awards assembly or something like that, or they're graduating from preschool, or or they want to go take a Friday because they want to see a t-ball tournament or a baseball tournament when their kids are in, or a soccer tournament or something like that. And it's what our way of saying, hey, we're putting teeth to this. This is what we believe. This is who we are. It's important to me, and I want to make sure that we put that out there. So we give those additional days so these guys, and we make sure they understand that. Hey, use them. That's what they're there for. We work hard. We will work hard. Sometimes we work late, to get jobs finished because we got jobs lined up for the next day. But I want you to be able to know that you can take these family days and spend time with your family, whether it be a long weekend or taking a half day to be able to go, go see your kids in a performance at school. So those kind of things are important to us, and I won't go through all 7 of them, but those are just kind of some of the highlights of what we do.
Excellent stuff there, Aaron. Hey, as we're bringing things in for a landing here, I'm sure there might be some people that are interested in learning more about you, especially because you have such a desire to be training and coaching. If you're open to that type of thing, how can people reach out to you?
Man, they can email me anytime, and I'll contact you back. My email address is Aaron, AARON, at sparkyelite.com. SPARKY elite ELITE.com.
Fantastic.
Hey, Aaron, you're a big fan of the show, right?
Absolutely.
Huge fan of the Waste No Day podcast, right?
Oh, boy.
I am a huge fan of the Waste No Day podcast.
What is your favorite episode?
Okay. Favorite episode. So I said probably the last one that I listened to. I love the Tommy Mello. And I went on and read his book as well from that. I like I haven't listened to the Roy Williams. I listened to the guy that wrote what was the one about the dog?
Peter Nevlin,
the
Wizard of Ads,
yeah.
Wiener Dog Marketing.
Yeah, I love that one. I loved the I can't name just one. The one with the Navy SEAL. Gosh, what's his name? He did the Hunting Hitler documentary.
That was a Delta sniper, not a Navy SEAL. The Navy SEAls would not appreciate that, buddy. That's Tim Kennedy.
Tim Kennedy.
He's actually down your way, buddy.
They
So
wouldn't like that, would they?
He is pretty close to you. He's in Austin. Yeah, no, I don't think the SEALs appreciate that. They don't like the Army and the Navy mixing like that. Yeah, that was episode 50, Tim Kennedy.
But I love Tim Kennedy, just in case he's listening to this.
I'm sure he is. I can't imagine he wouldn't be listening to this.
I love Tim, and I don't want to make Tim mad because he's also a UFC guy. So I definitely don't want to upset that guy.
No, that's one of those guys I'll do almost anything to keep him from being upset with me.
Yes, exactly. But that was a great one. I love that. I love documentaries, so I love that one, the Hunting Hitler documentary. It was really interesting.
Yeah, that was a great show. His Hard to Kill on the Discovery Channel was a great show too, where they got a hold of, like, I think there were video, but stories of these people going through these insane things, like falling out of a plane and surviving, with no parachute. And he is this crazy, would reenact these things personally.
That's incredible.
Yes,
that's incredible. I haven't seen that. I've got to go look that up now.
Yeah, I asked him, like, what's up with I forget if there was one season or two, but it was over. And I said, what no next season? And he's like, man, I got a family now. I can't be doing these things.
Well, this has been good stuff today, Aaron. Thanks so much for sharing with us. And as we kind of wrap up, I mean, you're sitting at 25 million this year. Where are you going, man? And how do you see yourself getting there? What are your goals?
Yeah, do you have a 2030 goal set yet?
We went 3 years in advance, and we're looking to be 70 million in 3 years. So it's like I said, if it doesn't scare you, then you're doing it wrong, right? So you got to put it out there.
Brian just started sweating over here.
We have it. You know, it's fun. We had a whole planning session where we sat down and we mapped it out what it looked like, and it's definitely aggressive, but that's where we see us in 3 years.
That's fantastic, man. We love aspirational growth. That's fantastic. And that is certainly what we're about here, improving yourself. Aaron Hagan, you've been a joy to have on the show. Thanks for sharing some of your content with us about how people in the trucks can get better, how they can be looking to step out of the truck into something higher, how to have a culture that is developed for the people itself, and how to always have training as a consistent piece of it. Good stuff.
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, man, in such short notice. I mean, we talked about this a week ago today, actually. So yeah. That was pretty short notice, and I really wanted to get you on. I had great conversations with you last week, and I look forward to seeing you at the convention in November.
Absolutely. I'll see you there, buddy. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Brian. We'll see you guys.
Hey, that's a wrap for this podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing from Aaron Hagan. What a great show, and what an inspirational message he's bringing there from 2 trucks and $400,000 to zero, and then back to 25 million with 55 trucks and hoping to be at 70 million in the next 3 years. That's fantastic growth, and also the message and the grit that comes with it, just the pursuit of something that is bigger, something that is hard, and going after it, not letting anything get in the way. We hope that's the message that you embody as an individual, regardless of whether your organization does. You can still hold to that same set of values and that same mindset, and that's what we want to encourage you to do. Aaron gave his personal contact on there. If you're interested in learning more from him, you can reach out to him, and we encourage you to do so. And we also encourage you to share this podcast with somebody who might enjoy it or who might be needing some type of inspiration or encouragement in their own life. Shoot us a message, leave us a review, hit us up on Facebook or any of the other areas where we are. Leave us a 5-star review if you can, and share the podcast to get the word out. We sure would appreciate it. We're going to leave it here for now with our challenge that we do every single week to make sure that you're looking to become a better person, that you're inspiring others around you and coaching them along the way, and that you yourself are choosing to wake up every single morning and waste no day.